All right, what's up, my brothers? We are live. Welcome to a live broadcast with my good buddy Jay Campbell. How you doing, Jay?
I'm awesome, Richard, man. Always an honor and a pleasure to be here, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's good. We've done I don't know what we're on now,
Like
three, four,
five, I
five.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're probably close to five broadcasts. I know we did a couple privately for my guys community, so they could do some Q&A with you directly on more underground stuff. But today's broadcast, you got some new updates, kind of on the optimization level for men, help guys level up in life, become better versions of themselves. I know that you've been incredibly useful to me. I mean, we've had a number of private conversations last year, almost. I suppose because I
Yeah.
started to optimize myself. It was around last March or so.
Mhm.
Had some great results. I shared a picture on Twitter the other day when I linked the
Yeah, you look great, by the way.
event. Yeah, and dude, like that was just regular day, not
Right.
pumped. I just felt
Right.
like, all right, let's see what things look like. So feeling really good, and I just want to be able to share that with my community, the guys out there, to give them some useful information. You're kind of like a top shelf guy in this area. You really know your stuff. So you've got some talking points here. I want to start off with the war on masculinity is multifactional. And you got some talk and some sub talking points beyond that. So I'll hand it over to you. Might interrupt with a couple of clarifying questions, but go ahead and hit that first one on the war on masculinity.
Yeah, for sure. As always, man, always an honor to talk to you and your audience. You got an amazing audience. Sometimes I get, a little carried away and responding to some of the trolls, but that's what makes a great YouTube channel is when you have good trolls, you've made it. But yeah, it's an honor to be here. And again, I'm glad that everything's happening for you the way it is. You and I talking off channel and whatnot. But yeah, man, as you know, you go out in anywhere in the public sector today, really globally, not just in the West, and people are at an all-time like worst physically, right? Like the average person, every time I speak, I always say the average person now, adult, male or female, over the age of 40 is obese. It's like 68% of all adults in North America are obese. And, people ask, well, how do you clarify what does obese mean? And it's like, from a scientific standpoint, the BMI, you're a 27 or higher on the BMI or 28 or higher on the BMI. And for me, it's kind of a close correlation to body fat. And obviously, this is just the Jay Campbell index. But if you're over 25% body fat, you're obese, right? Because your risk factors for age related disease are like 10 times that of someone who's 10% less body fat, right? So just from, I think, a qualitative standpoint for people who watch this, and this is kind of guys and girls, I'll give both. I know you guys, you're like me, you have more male listeners, but if you're lean, when I say somebody is lean, that means you're probably somewhere between 11 and percent of body fat and under, and you walk around like that, like year round, right? You're not like some guy who just, high body fat most of the year and then shreds for whatever they're doing, like a beach vacation or something like that. I mean, lean, you're under 11% and you walk around like that. Okay.
Hey, let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
just for guys that don't have a body fat percentage scale
Sure.
or maybe have the wherewithal to kind of measure this,
Mhm.
25% body fat, what does that look like on a guy? Like you get out of the shower and you got so much belly fat you can't see your Johnson when
Yeah,
you look down?
for the most part, it's tough to say that normally because some people store body fat regionally based on genetics.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the best. That's probably the best advertisement from a general standpoint is like, yeah,
Yeah.
you look down and you cannot see your penis.
Okay. And then like generally speaking, if you're around 11, 12% body fat, like your abs start to pop around that, right? So I mean, like you'll know
Yeah.
you get it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a perfect. I was actually going to get that. But I'm glad you said that. So healthy would then be like 11 to 15 to 16. And then when you go over 16%, then you're starting to get into not fat, but not in the best shape, right? So 20% to me is probably fat. And then
All
you're
right.
25%, you're obese. Women is a little different scale. So, for the women, just to say it, like women have about 6% body fat that's internal for childbearing purposes. So you'll never see any woman or person that claims that a woman is under 10% body fat. That's impossible. They would be dead.
And
So
women
like
don't look that good when their body fat's way too
no,
low
no,
either, in
no.
my
But
view.
even a shredded fitness chick, when they're shredded, they're like 12% body fat. And
Yeah.
that's like when they're, wow, no body fat. Because again, they have all that internal body fat. You can't go below 5% body fat and survive for very long. People claim, oh, that bodybuilder was 4% or some shit. That's not, it's nonsense. It's not true.
Mhm.
So knowing that people are fat, knowing that you have the age-related disease risk, through the roof. I created a word, stratospheric. I mean, the bottom line is that in today's day and age, have to know those things. So then it becomes, well, what is the correlative causes? Well, the causes, as you know, in the bullet points are, being sedentary, living in this instant gratification world where technology makes everything ubiquitous and instant, and instantaneous, right there. People don't ambulate. They're not walking anywhere to pick up stuff anymore. My wife was saying that this morning. She was like, she ordered a pair of shoes off of Amazon. And it was from the same company, and she has the exact same pair of shoes. And it came back a different color, and she ordered the same size, and they were too small. And so I made a joke to her. I was like, well, think about that. Jeff Bezos thinks he saved the world, but he's actually made it worse now because no one goes shopping and tries things on. They're just like, oh, I'll just order it on Amazon or anywhere. They order everything online, and then you don't try it on. But, obviously the negative effect, you're not walking. There's no ambulation. So that's exercise. But bottom line is blue light. Okay. This obviously, the screens, the white that is coming down on us when we're in offices and cubicles and spaces and stuff like that. And then the food and then the air we breathe is like a full-on biochemical onslaught to our biological systems. And that makes us, if we do not optimize, as you were saying, that's the best word, I think. If we do not attempt to optimize, we are not in good shape. Okay. We're definitely going to lessen our life expectation quality. Obviously our age, from a cumulative standpoint, is going to drop. And we're just going to feel like shit. I mean, it's pretty much simple. If you do not choose to optimize in this environment today, you are not going to feel well. It's that simple.
So, what's the role that blue light plays in the whole scenario? Because I know that it disrupts your circadian rhythm, right? So like these lenses on my glasses, you can see like the slight purple tinge when I kind of move my head around. It's because there's a coating on these that block out blue light off screens, right? And I notice you're wearing the same thing too right now. So why is that important?
It's massively important. I just did a podcast yesterday with Daniel Kelly, and we spent a lot of time talking about sleep. So right now, I can just say, without going into a big summation about sleep, like we now know, and I say we, the scientific community knows that sleep deprivation is pretty much the cause of all the other issues. And it's all due to what you're just asking about. Blue light, LED light, which is white light, all these different shades of this energetic light disrupts exactly what you said. It disrupts synaptic pathways. It disrupts dendritic pathways, which again are the brain pathways that are most important. And when you disrupt the brain, you literally cannot get into polyphasic sleep, which is REM sleep, which is stage 3 sleep. And so I think the best hack I've heard about this is from, again, Dr. Anthony Jay, who's a good friend of mine now, who wrote the book Estrogeneration. They know from the studies that blue light disruption for the average person who doesn't wear these, right, Richard? So again, you got to take precautions, which we'll get to before the end of the show. It usually takes now 2.5 to 3 hours for the average person who works in technology or around, screens to get into REM sleep. So it's like you think about all this nonsense that we read online all the time about hacking sleep and biohacking and neurohacking and all these different things. People sleep 5-6 hours a night. Well, guess what? You're really not, because if you know that you don't get into REM sleep, so then the recommended hours of sleep for a human is based on polyphasic sleep, not total hours. So when you do the math, if you're a guy that struggles to fall asleep, and as you know, many people do, let's say it's 2.5, 3 hours, do the math, it takes that long. Now you got 4 more hours that you need minimum for restoration, and you're at 7 hours. So how many people are truly sleeping 7 hours a night uninterrupted? Very few. Very few, right? So it's like you already now know when you're sleep deprived, it leads to every other issue that you're going to experience. Insulin resistance, metabolic disorder, obviously fat accumulation, visceral fat primarily, which, is, we're going to talk about visceral fat, how bad that is. But yeah, I mean, lack of sleep is what destroys most people. And then, you get in the entrepreneur hustle and the grind, and a lot of people think that they can hack sleep and they don't need sleep, and, I'll take a nap. But man, lack of sleep, chronic lack of sleep, obviously over time destroys you.
Yeah. And I had a really bad issue with lack of sleep post-divorce, a lot of stress, with the divorce, with shit that was going on in my business. For a couple of years, I didn't sleep that well. There was even a long period of time where I'd wake up regularly at 3 a.m. So I put a lot of my time and resources in trying to optimize that and figure out how to sleep better. In the live chat, I just linked a video that I did a couple of years ago on tips to sleep better. There were 9 tips there that I listed in that video, so check that out. Just open it up on a tab. You can check it out later. I got a question here from my buddy Doug in a super chat. Thanks for that, man. He said, what role in longevity does mobility play? What is a proper protocol for incorporating mobility flexibility work into our fitness routine?
You want to say that for the end and answer?
Yeah, if we can just deal with that now, just because it's a super chat. I just don't want
to. Yeah. So it's a huge role. Mobility is massive. I'm a huge proponent of ART, which is active release technique massage. I see my ART massage therapist, at least once a month, and hopefully sometimes twice, depending on my travel schedule. I actually just had a session with her on Monday of this week. Both my wife and I are very, very big into foam rolling, and also we have extensive chiropractic use. I see my chiropractor once a week. But if you do not engage in that, and obviously yoga and other forms of Eastern, meditative science and / exercise are great, for stretching, for increasing elasticity and pliability to the human body. But there's no question that the human structure, if you do not train it as you age, you will have issues. 100%.
Yeah, it's going to atrophy 100%. Yeah. The war on masculinity talking point. You got blue light, you got food, air, and culture. Talk about culture, food, and air briefly before we move on to the next one.
Yeah, great question. So GMO food, we were actually talking about this. I went to dinner last night with my chiropractor and his wife, amazing people. And we were talking about this last night, but we went to a Peruvian restaurant and all the food was incredibly naturally cooked. There was no preservatives, nothing man-made. And it's I go back to my good friend Jim Brown. He always used to say, if God did not make it, don't eat it. It's literally the truth, because everything today that's man-made, and I don't even have to go into it, right? HFCs, trans fats, all this stuff, when it gets in your system, meaning your metabolism, and goes through your microbiome, your gut biome, it causes all kinds of dysfunction, disruption, dysregulation. And then what ends up happening is you become what is called dysbiotic. And dysbiotic is literally an inflamed gut biome. And an inflamed gut biome, as you know, can be anything. And they now know from science that the brain in the microbiota in the gut is actually more important than this brain in determining optimal physical health. Because when you get an infection and you get bacterium and pathogens that are sitting inside your intestines and other places inside your stomach, it leads to all kinds of other issues, which ultimately leads to inflammation and then cellular degradation. And then, of course, the cellular degradation becomes disease, right? So it's critically important today to be very cautious and very mindful of the foods that you put into your body. And it's not hard. I think you know this, right? If God didn't make it, you probably shouldn't eat it. Now, I'm not saying don't enjoy and indulge every now and then, have a bowl of cereal like I do, even though it's terrible for you and loaded with chemicals that probably kill me. It still tastes good, right? We got to enjoy life. So yeah. you just have to be very mindful of the foods that you eat. If you're a person who's an entrepreneur hustle guy and you never eat home cooked food and you never prepare your own food, well, that's your biggest problem right now, because you're definitely putting chemicals in your body that your body can't even metabolize.
I always notice there's a direct correlation between what somebody looks like at the grocery lineup and what's on the conveyor belt that they're unloading from their buggy. Always a direct correlation. Talk about air and why air matters when it comes to the war on masculinity.
Yeah, man. So air is so bad today. And again, not to go scientifically crazy, and Dr. Anthony Jay would be the guy to really read about that. They measure the particulates of plastic that are actually in the CO2 and the oxygen. And you guys, it's so bad. So the only way you can escape the poor air quality, and this is even remote now, because some of the smartest guys that I know will even say, no, that's not even true now because it's in the runoff. But you are so polluted if you're in a major coastal population city, an urban area, that has a lot of industrial smog and all that stuff. It's brutal. And all that stuff, as the phytoestrogens, the plastics, the plasticizers, all of that, petroleum distillate, that stuff literally attacks your endocrine system. It lowers sperm quality. It completely reduces sperm total. So, you're under siege. Your fertility is under siege. And then, of course, your testosterone is under siege at the same time. So it's bad, man. It's really difficult, though, to avoid it, right? If you live in a major city like both of us do. So what do you got to do? You have to optimize.
Mm. I want to just add, because I got these plants here. This is called a snake tongue plant. And those are just kind of like seedlings that are growing, but I've got tons of these plants in my house. I got them in the office about 10 years ago for my staff when I read a study that NASA did on purifying air. And a lot of people put house plants in their house thinking it's going to clean the air, provide oxygen, but at nighttime it doesn't do that. It pumps out carbon dioxide.
Right.
A snake tongue plant is the only plant that, one, cleans the air, and two, pumps out oxygen at nighttime.
That's awesome.
So it's either called mother-in-law plant or snake tongue plant. If you have a house, and especially in the wintertime where it's cold here in Canada, it's purifying the air. So it's always a good idea to have something like that in your house.
Dude, I did not know that.
Or
That is
something.
an amazing point. I'm going to text my wife right now.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So we got overcome via awareness. You got some sub-talking points: blood work, understanding symptomology, optimizing via natural means. Talk about that next one.
Yeah. So this is the biggest point, I think, of all the things we talk about today, because as you and I, Richard, have talked many times, the average guy today on the streets has no idea that he has low testosterone. He has no idea that he has what we call symptomology, right? So symptomology of needing optimization would be you have complete and total brain fog as a man. And again, as you and I said, this is happening now at guys in their 20s. So if you're one of these dudes that, like, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you are dead to the world, you need a nap, you're just out of it, that's probably a good indication that you have a testosterone deficiency. It could be also a thyroid deficiency, but essentially it's a hormone deficiency. But also just not just brain fog and listlessness, but, lack of energy. Obviously, sexual dysfunction. A lot of guys get freaked out about the idea that, low testosterone is sexual dysfunction. Because a lot of guys, it's like a pride thing. I was, oh no, dude, everything works with the Johnson. I'm good, bro. And it's like, it's not really a major symptom of testosterone deficiency. A lot of guys can be functioning at 200, 250, which is, again, classic hypogonadal, but able to have sex and maintain an erection. A lot of those guys are using Cialis or Viagra or Levitra too. So you got to be cautious and aware. And that's why I say aware. So you listen to guys like Richard, you read guys like my books, you listen to me talk. We're always talking about being aware of your surroundings. And if you're not aware that you have an issue, then you're never going to tackle it until it gets to the point where you're like, physically 1 foot in the grave. So today, the most important thing you can do, because you said this, and it's one of the talking points, is you can get your blood work done. Okay. And I don't care where you are, whether you're in South Africa, Canada, Los Angeles, New York, Miami, London. There are places now that provide independent laboratory analysis that do not require you to have medical benefits or a prescription from a doctor. You can get this done on your own. It's very simple. Google is your friend, and go and get, basic labs. Get your testosterone measured, get your estrogen, which is your estradiol. Hopefully you're in a place where you can get a sensitive LCMS pool. Look at your coronary risk factors. Look at most important inflammatory factors. It's
vitamin D is pretty important too, right?
Absolutely. But it's very simple to go to these places, and wherever it is, whatever, company, and I don't have to name names, but they have like wellness panel for men, or pre-hormone panel, or TRT panel, or something like that. Just search and then just pick one and pay $150 or $200 or whatever it is. And then get these results.
Don't do the spit test, guys, like the ones where you spit in the thing and mail that in. It's not as accurate as the blood work. So get proper blood work done.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. You got to get what is called a I can't even think of what it's called now. But yeah, it's got to be blood. You can't rely on anything. Actually, a urine test, a Dutch test, is amazing, but it's so expensive that it's pretty much cost prohibitive for most men. But yeah, blood work is serum, which is blood work. That's what you got to get done.
Okay. Did you have anything else? Blood work, understanding symptom, like symptomology to me sometimes is so obvious. Like when I see a dude walking around with breasts, you got really high estrogen and low testosterone. I can tell now when I talk to somebody on the phone. By
their voice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, remember when I first talked to you, I said, remember I walk into a room and I know, it's very true. Like men that are very low, they have also very, very low energy. So they're not animated in their communication or their body language, or, again, I say vibration because it's energy, but it's very, very true. And then you have that like that nasal low.
Well, they have more of a feminine voice, right?
Yeah,
like
it's very nasal.
Yeah. You got another talking point up next: when and how to use therapeutic testosterone. I think it's important to distinguish therapeutic testosterone from a bodybuilding, like super physiological dose, because like that same picture that I put on Instagram, I shared it a couple weeks earlier on the community tab of my channel. And there was always, of course, a couple of plebs that they come in there and they're like, oh, you got too much body fat in this lower area of your back. And why aren't you wearing posing trunks? And you're not big enough. You would never compete on an Arnold Classic on stage. You would fail and all this kind of bullshit. And I'm like, dude, I'm 45. You think I want to put on posing trunks and compete on stage? I look sexy as fuck naked. Eat it, man. Because this is the kind of stuff that people confuse with the two. Therapeutic dosage is to optimize you. Like, I feel like I'm 30 years old again, physically, you know, and I'm 45. And that's what it's designed to do. So talk about how and when to use therapeutic testosterone.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I'm glad you just brought that up right where you did, because like I kind of left a talking point off from the previous one, which goes right into that. So you should obviously start therapeutic testosterone when you have exhausted all natural means, right? And what I mean by that is, we've already hit it. You know, Richard and I already talked it, right? Like if you're clean, you eat a clean diet, you're eating food that's not man-made or manufactured GMO food, you're exercising, you know, hopefully vigorously with lifting weights, contracting muscle fibers, doing some form of cardiovascular fitness, whatever it is. And you have obviously, you know, doing these, you're wearing these, you're avoiding blue light, you're getting ample sleep. If doing all the natural means does not optimize you, and the statistic that I have from a very smart doctor who I will not name right now, he says that all men over the age of 50 right now today, or all around the world, 1% can become optimized via natural means. And they have to be very hardcore anal retentive type A. For men under the age of 40, 15 to 20%. Again, this is from a very, very well-known smart doctor who's, you know, got thousands of patients. So if you're one of those guys under 40 in that 15 to 20% range, you are living an extremely dialed in life. And I mean, like, everything is regimented. You're living by a calendar. You're sleeping 8 hours a night. You know, you're eating only specific foods. You don't have blue light exposure very much, blah, blah, blah. You're probably tracking your sleep. But again, to me, those two things, if you're not those genetic outliers and you're not type A personalities, and you know this, Richard, there's type A personalities are becoming less and less, right? Because again, technology is making people lazy. Okay, so it's a very small group of people, a very select club that have that genetic, you know, that so to speak anomaly where they can remain optimized and just do it via natural. So you exhaust those natural means and you're not in that group, you're probably a candidate for testosterone. Okay, so to answer your question, what is therapeutic testosterone? Therapeutic is literally a very, very micro dose of testosterone to get your natural, quote unquote, endogenous levels to a range where you feel optimal. Now, there isn't a number, you know, that corresponds on like a total testosterone range. And like one of the things I've been really making, you know, we wanted to bring some new stuff here today is that the ranges, and you know this, Richard, but the ranges, it doesn't matter whether you're in Canada, the United States, or Europe, the ranges are designed for normal people, not men utilizing therapeutic testosterone. So for doctors to look at those normal ranges and then extrapolate, you know, that data with men on exogenous therapeutic testosterone, it doesn't apply. And so you get guys confused because they look at these ranges and they say, oh, I want to keep so-and-so within that narrow range or within that sweet spot, you know, estrogen, testosterone, whatever, it's the same. And then you get them all psychogenically freaked out because they're like, oh my God, I have to keep my testosterone and my estrogen in a specific range to be optimized. And that's not the truth. The definition of optimization is I feel amazing and I have in the absence of symptoms and side effects. So if that guy is on 150 milligrams of therapeutic testosterone a week, which is probably a median dose, and he feels amazing and he gets his blood work drawn and it shows 1,700, you know, within 24 hours of him. Again, I'm giving, you know, US ranges right now, but he shows him 1,700 total testosterone within 24 hours of injection or whatever his delivery system is. The average doctor who doesn't know this stuff is going to freak out. And he's going to say, oh my God. And I'm sure his estrogen is going to be correlated just as high. And he's going to say, nope, I got to reduce his testosterone dosage and I got to, you know, block his estrogen further or more or whatever, because most of them are trying to block it. And we'll get to that in a second. And then you just start them in that circle of vicious, like, vortex of like, oh shit, you know, and now the guy's going to get worse. And so, you know, as you and I have talked about before, you have this like cycle of hell that so many men experiencing going down that pathway because of doctors get screwed up. So it's critically important to recognize that it doesn't matter what your levels are as long as you don't have any symptoms or side effects negative and you feel great. Now, again, we're talking about therapeutic. We're not talking about super physiologic, which is what bodybuilders use, right? Those guys are using like 10, 15, 20, 25 times that amount on a weekly basis. And they're using polypharmacy, which is obviously multiple agents, multiple synthetics, different drugs and whatnot. So that's completely nothing about what I preach and talk about or what we're talking about on the show.
Got it. Maintaining fertility. Because when you go on an optimization regimen by introducing exogenous testosterone, so whether you're injecting or rubbing cream on your balls,
yep.
You generally lose your fertility, right?
That's correct. Well, yes and no. It's because,
for some guys, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the funny joke is always like, what do you call a guy on testosterone for birth control? Daddy, right? Because it's like it always gets through. But for the most part, you will be your axis, which is your HPA, your hypothalamic testicular axis will be shut down because again, your body is sensing the external exogenous testosterone, and so it ceases to produce its internal. But let's talk about that because I don't spend a lot of time talking about this anymore, but it's important for men to know because a lot of guys come at me and they're like, or YouTube probably, and they're like, yeah, but then you got to be on it forever. Well, hello, you're not going to have any of it with the environment being the way that it is now anyway. So it's like, if you have a mindset of like, I don't want to replace it, I'll just use mine. Well, then motherfucker, by the time you're 45, you ain't even going to have any testosterone, right? You're going to be dead, going downhill, right? Bone density issues, joint issues, all kinds of inflammation, again, visceral fat deposition. You don't want to go down that path. So the optimization route is like looking at your, the understanding that, okay, this is something I have to deal with. My forefathers didn't have to deal with this, but I do. This is the environment that I find myself in. So I'm going to use testosterone to optimize myself because it's really the only means. There isn't, not that I have to say it on this show, but there is no pill, there is no herb or adaptogen or Tongkat Ali or fenugreek or any of this other nonsense that people put out there as a testosterone booster that's actually going to optimize your testosterone levels. It's BS. Nothing. I've studied them all. It's all the research is in my book. We've looked at every single agent that they advertise, and all they are is just scams. They just drain guys of their money because guys are afraid of using the real stuff. It's ridiculous that they should be afraid of it because, as you know, Richard, when this is done right, there are no side effects. And any side effects that you have are so narrow and small and so correctable that you wouldn't even claim that they were side effects. The guys that have side effects, and we're going to get to this, but the guys that have side effects on testosterone are fat. It's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, the side effects are stronger muscles, more defined muscles, lower body fat,
better sex,
morning wood, better sex, more mental clarity.
Totally.
Some people get a little more body hair or acne. I haven't had really either. I mean,
I think that comes from shitty diet, dude. I really do.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, like I said in my post when I created the event and I shared it, it's like small incremental changes that compound can have such a profound and positive effect on a man's life. It's like all you got to do is eat reasonably well. Right. So all I did in the last year basically to optimize myself was do a little more cardio, a few times a week fasted. I do slight diet changes. So I eat a little less sugar and processed food. And I still work out. And the changes were gained about 5 or 6 pounds of muscle and no body fat. Yep. Looking, feeling better, sex is better. Like everything works better, right?
Right.
So, this is talking about beating the decline for men because, I mean, the war on masculinity is real, man. You just take a look around in public when you go to the grocery store, when you go to a movie, when you're filling up with gas. And it's like, I look around and I'm just like, what is up with these people? Like these guys would be zombie fodder if the shit hit the fan, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, exactly. Well, to your point, I have a really big PR company now that is, behind me, and they've landed me a lot of network stuff, but I cannot get on mainstream because of the toxic masculinity stuff, because they look at me as the pro testosterone guy. Like next week, should knock on wood, I'm on NBC Tucson, and I'm on the next day in Phoenix, Scottsdale, the largest independently held network television station in the world. It has 1.8 million homes. It's called KFan. They are a whole West Coast. And so it's cool. It's a great opportunity for me. But, my PR agent has been telling me, they're like, dude, you do great on camera. Cause they have, 4 times of me on network TV, regional outlets. And so all the people have me on camera because a lot of times they say to you like, oh, well, we want to know what you look like on camera and, how you come off. Are you engaging? Blah, blah, blah. And so they have all these for me now. And it's like, nope, you're stymied. And I've been told by the owner of the PR company that like, I'm really sorry, bro. This is just the environment we're in right now. You are a guy that is the guy that, that they can't promote because again, that, like you said, that's just toxic masculinity nonsense. So, I could complain and be victim and stuff like, oh, that's not fair. What was me? But I just move on. And, I realize at some point it'll change. But yeah, dude, you're right. I mean, it's bad.
People
bad.
People tend to ask you all the time, like, I'll just be doing something and someone would be like, what's your routine? Why are you so fit? Like, what's going on? Or I'll be sitting in the sauna.
You're an outlier, bro.
Yeah. It's like you're a fucking icon and they got tons of questions to ask you. I mean, a lot of guys don't want to do the work. I mean, they always start talking about, well, what about these testosterone boosters or these other things? And you have to go through the whole fucking thing. Oh, look, they don't work. They're a lot of bullshit. I mean, some of them were even found when they analyzed the ingredients that they have like micro doses of Viagra in them, which confuse guys. And they think that it's boosting their testosterone because they're getting more hard-ons, but it's just like the micro dose of Viagra they put in this shit. It's usually stuff that comes from China. It's so true. It's so true that you say that. And they just announced about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, the DEA is going after the supplement industry now, right? So there's never been, and the FDA, of course, in combination. They're like peas in a pod. One form is the guys in handcuffs and guns and holsters and undercover, and then the FDA is the guys that seal the lab, that stamp the lab approved. But it's the same. It's two arms of the same coin. But the bottom line is that they are going to start regulating the supplement industry. And the reason they're going to start regulating the supplement industry is because the big pharma, which is the biggest arm of the whatever you want to call them that runs the world, they're getting squeezed by supplements now because people are waking up and they're like, wow, I don't need this drug. I don't need this SSRI. I don't need this stuff. I'll buy something natural. And so like, wow, profits are starting to go down with the pharmaceutical companies. And honestly, Richard, we might as well bring it up. I said we were going to bring up new stuff. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of studies that have come out lately that are clearly founded and funded by big pharma to further and future restrict, therapeutic testosterone. There's no doubt. I don't know if you saw it in Canada, but in the last 2 weeks, they've been just inundating the mainstream airwaves with high testosterone causes heart issues, which we know is not true. It's the opposite, right? The book has proven it. There's great doctors and researchers that have proven it. But why is the mainstream still pushing that narrative? Well, because they can sell antidepressant drugs.
Yes.
Like a lot of guys get prescribed antidepressant drugs when they're bummed out, they're not feeling optimized, rather than checking the blood labs and making sure, testosterone and estrogen and, DHEA and vitamin D are all, check and, helping guys feel good because they can sell more of that shit. Testosterone's cheap. It's really cheap. It's not expensive. And it's been around for a hell of a long time. Yeah. And it's bioidentical to what your nuts put out anyway.
Exactly.
It's just not as profitable for them. So, I mean, like you always got to dig below the surface and say, what's behind this? Like, what are these guys motivated by? Why are they selling all this crap to us that, makes us feel numb?
Absolutely the truth. I mean, but, let's go deeper, put the tinfoil hat on. I mean, the smarter people are saying to me now and, trying to like a little bit distance themselves from me because of where I'm going, but it's like, dude, they may restrict this completely, and I say to people, guys are coming at me and they're like, oh my God, dude, if I got to be on it for life and then they make it illegal, what am I going to do? And I'm always like, bro, there's always a solution, right? Yeah. If that does happen, then people like me and you will find avenues and we will tell people, and then thousands and millions of people will find it. And that's how it works. Now, I don't personally believe they're going to completely restrict it, but it wouldn't like blow me away. It wouldn't surprise me. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But they would never do that for women. The interesting thing is when I go to this clinic, where the doctor scripts me, probably about 2/3 of the people going there are women. I mean, they get a different cocktail for men as they age, of course, but that would be probably a-okay to continue on. But men optimizing their masculinity, becoming stronger and better versions of themselves, we'll have none of that. You guys are already too toxic right now.
Oh, you want to change? You want to be a woman and change into a man? Sure, here's testosterone.
Yeah, exactly. Damn. All right. We got another bullet point here about the truth about managing estrogen. I see you guys throwing some questions in there. Just hold up. We'll try to get to them towards the end. If you want to super chat us, we'll interrupt it. But hit on the truth about managing estrogen, Jay.
Okay. Yeah. So this is obviously probably the real late breaking, newest information. And I've been out there kind of like really from the bully pulpit with some really, your level, brands and personalities and influencers and talking about this. And it really all starts back with the podcasts I did back in late October, early November with Dr. Neil Rougier. So Dr. Rougier is probably the world's greatest interpreter. I won't say researcher, but interpreter of the actual research on using aromatase inhibitors, which are estrogen blockers, in both female cancer patients, which is what they were designed for, and in men undergoing and utilizing therapeutic testosterone. And as you know, I've told you, and this is new stuff and news for a lot of people, the research is not good. Okay. Now let's go back to the basics. The basics are AIs, aromatase inhibitor medications, were made and designed for women who had end-stage breast cancer. So stage 3, stage 4 metastasis in their boobs. They've already had full mastectomies and now they still have the tumors and they're on these drugs. So for whatever reason, and again, I always say it started in the bodybuilding world, 10, 15 years ago, bodybuilders started using aromatase inhibitor drugs because when they're on massive pharmacological, superphysiological, whatever you want to say, it's the same name, of doses of polypharmacy, you get a lot of estrogen production, right? You're on 5 grams of gear a week, and that's not a joke. That's what some of those guys are on, to be cartoonish and 300 pounds at 5% body fat. But the bottom line is they started using these drugs to suppress this estrogen, overproduction of estrogen, so that they could exist. They could, get by during the day and not be waterlogged, puff-faced fish. Somehow, Richard, that pushed into the community that you and I are talking about now, which is the therapeutic clinical community. And then, doctors started using these low-dose, microdose aromatase inhibitor drugs. I've been on them. I think you might have started on one, or you never used it at all? Because I told you.
No, I never used them. My estrogen kind of, converted high for a bit, but we managed it with a few other things. I just ate more broccoli and took a couple of different supplements and naturally got it down. Yeah,
exactly. And your body acclimates. So the bottom line is that most guys who've been on testosterone for a while, like myself, use them or have experience with them at one time or another, because at one time we thought that as your testosterone rose, you wanted to keep your estrogen lower. It's the exact opposite. And here's the research, here's the data, and I'm going to do a 100,000-foot summary. You need estrogen as you age to confer protection to all of your biological systems. When I say all, I'm not joking. Everything: brain, heart, organs, vascular. Everything is necessary from estrogen being converted from the enzyme. Again, it's an enzymatic process through aromatase from testosterone, right? So as you know, as an older guy gets today without being on therapeutic testosterone, his testosterone declines, his visceral body fat comes up, and he does have higher estrogen. But in the therapeutic world, which is what you and I are talking about, when you give a guy testosterone, he is, as you already experienced, going to have a higher production now of estrogen. There's no reason to block it, because if you block it, you're blocking all of the good things that estrogen does for your biological system. So many, many men who are using therapeutic testosterone at the windmill clinics, and we won't mention them, they're everywhere, are being put on blah, 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 which is blah, 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 is an AI, HCG, testosterone, and then any other value add that the doctor and the clinic can sell them. They don't know what's going on in their own endocrine system because they can't measure one over the other. They're all polypharmacy, even in low doses, microdosages. And so you cause all kinds of biological perturbations, which is disruptions in your endocrine system. So you don't know what's doing what. But when you're using an AI, you are seriously causing harm to yourself. And what a lot of guys who are smart, who've been on testosterone for a long time, will say is, and they say this to me all the time, I probably get still 20 emails a day of this, especially as this is becoming bigger. I just did a podcast with Ben Pekulski, a fellow Canuck. And he was a pro bodybuilder, one of the greatest ones of all time. And now he's a brilliant biohacker, neurohacker. And he was telling me his story about like what he would feel like when he was at the end stages, because he was smart enough to rarely use them, but he would have to use them when he got on stage at 280 pounds because it was the only way he could get water out of his legs, right? But he was like, dude, when I was on those things, I felt like I was a homicidal maniac. Like I literally could not keep it together. So extrapolate that with men who are on therapeutic amounts and microdoses of AIs, and Richard, it's the same shit. They have anxiety, they're crazy, they can't keep it together. They even have increased brain fog. So all the things that the testosterone is supposedly curing is now being exacerbated by the AI in combination with the testosterone. So one final point on AIs. Just because the AI causes or gives you symptom resolution of whatever it is, and symptom resolution can be like itchy nipples or that irritability that you feel because your testosterone dose is too high, it's still shit. It's still causing problems for you. You can do a DEXA scan of a guy on an AI for 5 years and go in and look at his bones and you will have a heart attack. Like any doctor that does it and looks at it is like, oh my God, what's the matter with this guy? The AI is blocking bone mineral absorption. So your bone mineral density is decaying as you age. And a lot of these guys, bro, look amazing. You know, they're, six-pack dudes, low body fat, lean, like we talked about, muscular, trained, but their bones are like brittle. So bottom line, you should not be on an AI. Now, this is going to be, a countermeasure to a lot of guys are going to freak out. I've been on an AI for 10 years, Jay. What do I do? You just gradually titrate it off. If you're on, 0.25 or 0.5 2 days a week, you drop it to half the dosage for a couple of weeks until you just get off of it. Now, you're going to have side effects probably, because especially the longer you've been on it. And I mean, side effects mean they could be anything. They could be like a piss, like you have less piss volume or stream because you feel like your prostate is dealing with atrophy. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories from guys, but as Richard said, you will eventually notice that you will be back to normal. Because again, the way that drug functions is it does create some form of a chemical dependency in your system, and we're all biochemically unique. So some guys are going to have like more of a dependency than others, but bottom line, it's a shitty, toxic women's breast cancer drug. It only causes harm to biological systems, and you should not be using it. Again, therapeutic. I'm not talking about super physiologic. And if you're using super physiologic, then you're at risk anyway.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that I didn't talk about today, which I've been talking about on a lot of other podcasts when I go deeper, is this. They cause micro blisters in vascular networks. So to not scare anybody, but I'm scaring you now because I'm bringing it up, is that if you've been using an AI at a higher enough dosage and you're prone to it, and not everyone is prone, we're all different, you do have a risk of vascular blisters in your vascular networks. And what is a vascular blister? I mean, a micro blister is essentially a slight tear or hole somewhere in your vascular architecture of your body, which can lead to, all kinds of vascular dysfunction. So they're just not good. If you're on them and you're watching this show right now, don't come at me and scream and say you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. Go to your doctor and say, Doc, I listened to Jay Campbell. And I can show you the research and I can point you to other podcasts where it's more scientific, but you've got to get off the AI. It's no good.
Two things. There's a guy that put in the comments here, AI prevents gyno though, bro.
No, totally not true.
Yeah, you won't. I mean, the chances you getting gyno, which is gyno, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's basically bitch tits.
Yeah, and I'll talk about it because it's
a
good point.
It's basically bitch tits. Bitch tits. I mean, the vast majority of men don't have the propensity to get gyno unless they're on super high dosages of testosterone and it's doing its thing in, your belly fat. But I mean, the other thing too, my doctor told me that it's really bad for your cholesterol panels as well, like HDL and LDL, like it really messes with that.
Absolutely destroys HDL. Let me go back to gyno though. I'm glad that guy I'm glad he came in and said that.
Yeah.
So you're kind of right, but here's the thing, and I found this out myself when I had gyno removed. Chapter 11 of my book is all about gynecomastia. If you're watching this podcast, I always send you guys the book. Just email me, or no, don't email me. Email my team. Just send it to contact@trtrevolution.com. I'll send you the TOT Bible PDF, not the book. Richard and I sell amazing things at the end of this podcast that you want anyway, but I will send you the PDF, especially if you're in a foreign country and you can't get anything. But it's genetic. And when they code your DNA, which you can do with Anthony J, it's $300. It's the best thing you'll ever do if you're a younger guy too and you want to learn how to train, because they can look at your muscle fibers too. But it's purely genetic. And according to my doc, who's one of the best doctors in the world, Dr. Joseph Cruz, for gyno removal, he's done over 3,000 surgeries. Between 60 and 64% of all men on the planet have the gyno gene. So to the bro who said, but it blocks gyno, no, it doesn't. So can it resolve your symptoms of gyno? Yes. But will gyno come back for you? Yes. What is the solution for gyno? You can get it cut out. Nothing else is going to work if you have gyno and the predisposition, meaning the genes for it. So you're not going to use Novadex or Raloxifene or Aromacin or Arimidex or all these different SERMs and AIs. It doesn't do shit. It will resolve your symptoms. But as soon as you stop taking those drugs, and as Richard and I already said, those drugs are not good for you, the symptoms come back and you're going to end up having to cut out. You know, people are always saying to me, that's not true, bro. If I use 15 milligrams of Novadex, I don't have gyno. And I'm like, well, yeah, dude, you know what that 15 milligrams of Novadex is doing to your blood panels and doing to your lipid panels and doing to, again, what we know now, your biological systems. That shit, they're women cancer drugs. Don't touch them. Lower your testosterone dosage, increase the frequency of your delivery system, rinse and repeat until you feel balanced and happy and have no side effects. That's simple.
Your final point, visceral body fat is your enemy. Talk about that.
Dude, that's a whole show.
Actually, define what visceral body fat is, just so it's clear.
Yeah, for sure. So visceral body fat is the thick, you guys can Google this and you can look at this, like between white body fat, brown body fat, and visceral body fat. The visceral body fat is like that mucus, thick, like it's almost like plastic glue, rubber, that if you pulled it out of like your stomach or anything like that, it's just disgusting. And that body fat is the body fat that causes inflammation. So what happens when you're fat? Remember, 20, 25% or higher. And again, it's a lot of dudes. You start taking testosterone. You take anything, right? Peptides, testosterone, anything. You inject it locally, parentally, intramuscularly, or even subcutaneously. The fat, that visceral body fat, creates a systemic inflammatory response. And that inflammatory response has an attack, not to get too esoteric and biochemical, but you create all these different cytokines that rush into the system. And those cytokines cause what you perceive to be high estrogen side effects, right? Sensitive nipples, water retention, and irritability, instability. You don't feel good. That's because your visceral body fat is causing that full body inflammatory response to the testosterone. So, every time I talk about this on a show, what's the number one thing you can do if you want to get optimized before even doing the other stuff? Lose body fat. Body fat is your enemy. It causes all the diseases of aging. The more body fat you have, the more inflamed you are. The more body fat you have, obviously, the less mobile you are, the less flexibility you have. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Some guys, hey, you're 50 years old and you're fat, you're 30% plus, you got a lot of visceral body fat. Those guys, are going to need testosterone just to have energy. Because as you know, Richard, testosterone is lipolytic. It does increase thermogenesis and increase basal metabolic rate, increases thyroid. So it will burn a little bit of body fat just by being on it. But if you don't choose to dial your lifestyle in and start eating better and doing exercise and cleaning up and not drinking alcohol and blah, 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 sugar, all that stuff, it won't do shit. Testosterone will not do shit for you if you're fat and you do not change from living a fat lifestyle. It's that simple.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I got two questions for you before I kind of go into the comments here. We'll probably go for about 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
First question I got for you is delivery systems. You switched from injections. When I first talked to you, you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yep.
And then you switched to a cream, scrotal cream that you basically run on, rub on your nutsack twice a day, right? Morning and evening.
Yes, correct.
How's that been working out versus the injections?
So, I mean, I love it. Every time I go live now and have the opportunity and the blessing to go on people's shows and talk about this stuff, I rave about it. I was very much against it at first, but, science changes, data points come in, we learn new things. When I experienced and started using transdermal delivery systems when I was 32, which was essentially like 2.5 years after I've been doing injections, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll do this because it's better. It's less invasive. I don't have to inject myself, blah, blah, blah. Well, at that point, I'm 48 now. So what was that? 16 years ago, the creams then did not have the bioavailability that they have now. They don't have like the permutational, stuff that's in there that crosses the skin and all that stuff. But also I didn't know about the transscrotal approach. Okay. I had no idea about the membrane and the permeability of that location on your scrotum and how absorbent testosterone cream put there is and how much better it is for you. So without going into a deep, esoteric biochemical response, it's 8 times better absorbed right there on the bottom of your scrotum than it is anywhere else from a skin standpoint on your body. Secondarily, as we know, when you use testosterone for life, if you're injecting yourself, that's a whole lot of holes you're poking in yourself, right? So I had 17 years of poking myself here and, here and in my, glutes and my quads and wherever else I rotated. So I was, I started getting tired of injecting myself. Now, obviously I'm using small needles, 26, 27, 28 gauge, intramuscular, 5/16 of an inch up to an inch. So I never really had like massive scar tissue, but, I started thinking, weighing the pros and cons, like, why don't I give it a shot? So I've been using it now for 8 months. I cannot see myself ever going back to injections. Is there a better, like a super advanced effect versus injections if you're going, every other day or daily? And by the way, there's only 2 ways to do injections today. You can do it twice a week if you're like needle phobic or just traveling or it's not convenient, but you won't feel as good as if you do it every other day or you do it daily. And the reason that is because your body is mimicking its natural production. The more frequent the delivery system, the more you're going to be, again, the body senses it's natural and there's no perturbations to your system. You're not going to have acne, irritability, whatever other minor side effects you might have. So, but with the cream, because you're putting it on your scrotum, you have a bigger DHT signal, and DHT is dihydrotestosterone, and dihydrotestosterone is the primary androgen signal. So you will feel a little bit of heightened, what I call psychosexual effects, which means that like if you're a dude like me, you're in a monogamous relationship for a long time, you are going to be more ready to just, sporadically or just like, randomly go into sex with your wife, right? Like you're going to, be hard, faster, and just, you'll be ready. That's about the best way I can say it versus you're on injections. You're still going to be ready on injections, but you won't be as excitable because you have the cream right down there on the nuts. And again, that DHT spike is bigger with the cream than it is the injection. The other thing too to keep in mind is that when you do it twice a day, and full disclosure, I don't even need to do it twice a day. Like I say, when I travel and I go to vacation spots and my wife and I are going to get frisky or whatever, then yeah, I'll put a second dose on at night. I'll take a shower after being out the day all day. We're at the beach or ocean or whatever we're doing, and I'll put on a second dose after we get out of the shower. But I just need once a day. So you feel so good on the cream because, again, remember, you're administering it daily. The absorption rate is phenomenal. And it just creates that androgen spike, which also the androgen spike, in addition to creating psychosexual benefits, it also improves mood, dopamine, so the same things that you already get with injectable testosterone, you just might get a slight bit more stable feeling on the cream because you're administering it daily. So and one other thing with that, you have no side effects. Almost every guy who goes on cream from the beginning and doesn't get fucked up by a doctor who doesn't know what they're doing, they have no side effects. They never have estrogen side effects because the body is not going crazy. The body's just sensing, oh shit, I got cream on my nuts. It's just normal testosterone pulse. So that's another thing.
How long do you need to wait for max absorption? Like you get out of the shower, you dry yourself up, you lift up your Johnson, you throw your cream on, you just kind of stand there, brush and floss your teeth. Like how long do you wait before you put on underwear and stuff?
It's great question. Another thing about that too is some guys are like, I don't want to shave my balls. Dude, you just need to shave a patch where to put the cream on, right? So just like that big. It literally, for me, I'm completely like not noticing it. You put it in, it takes maybe 15 seconds to really wipe it in. And then, after 30, 40, 60 seconds or whatever, and I usually do brush my teeth right after I do it. I don't even know it's there. Like, if I pulled my boxers down right now, like, would there be a lot of residue in my boxers? Not really. But that is a good question because, some guys are like, well, dude, man, I don't want transference on my wife, right? Well, if your wife doesn't put your balls in her mouth, like within 5 minutes after administering it, I don't think there's an issue for transference at all, really.
Cool.
It absorbs that well. And by the way, there's 2 forms. There's HRT base and Versa base. And technically, the HRT base is supposed to be a little bit better permeable from an absorption standpoint, but I've used only Versa and I have no problems. The other thing to keep in mind, because I know you have a huge audience internationally, is it's not the gels, guys. We're talking about the cream. Compounded 200 milligram per gram, testosterone cream, Versa base or HRT base, not androgel or trim or these other generic gels that are found in Europe, they're all worthless because the dosage is so small or low that you can't even like optimize your testosterone anyway. So again, 200 milligrams per gram, either Versa base or HRT base cream, and it's awesome.
What's the cost difference between the scrotal cream versus like Cypionate?
It's more expensive, of course, right? Because the pharmaceutical companies are behind it. But not much. It is a great question. So through my doctor and my script, I get 3 tubes, which is essentially 90-day supply. But for me, because I'm not doing it twice a day, it's going to last me a lot longer. You know what? I never thought about that. It's probably about the same. So if you're using it 2 times a day, it's going to be, I think it's $120, bro, for 3.
Got it. Okay. And here's kind of an odd question for you.
Yep.
There's times where, you kind of feel like we're long overdue for the shit hitting the fan, sort of thing, like some sort of critical sort of event. How would you manage getting exogenous testosterone if that were to happen? There's guys out there that prep, they got their tinned food and their preserved food, and they got their shotguns and all that sort of shit. But if you're on a testosterone optimization schedule and like electricity shuts down for a month or something like that, or something happens, what do you do? Like, where do you get it from?
It's a great question, man. And obviously don't think I haven't thought of it. I mean, you have to have like, let me take off my clinical hat. You have to have friends, that manufacture this or create it underground or whatever. And, who can, you can have access to. So I always tell people, like, if you have those friends, order 10 bottles of Cypionate, for if the SHF hit happens. I mean, there's no way ever to know, like, and to, ultimately prepare for everything. But I think if you're connected enough as somebody like you and I are, and if you're connected, if you're listening right now, then you're somewhat connected. You're going to be able to make do. That's what I always say is, like, the Navy SEALs, like, figure it out, right? Like, figure it out. But yeah, it's a good question. I mean, if the shit hits the fan and we hit an EMP takes us all off the grid and people are like cannibals, hopefully you have enough to keep you alive. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I have friends that if that happens, I can make a phone call, assuming I can make a phone call, or if I can't make a phone call, I can drive my Jeep or someone's motorcycle to their crib or to their bunker or their underground facility, and I'm not going to be worried. But I would say just find somebody in the gray market space who sells testosterone, and there are millions of them out there. And buy 10 bottles of it. I mean, you can buy, let's talk about this, right? Who cares? You can buy a bottle of SIP, Ananthate, Sustanon from an underground steroid supplier, legit, an actual pharmaceutical grade, $45, $40 a bottle, 10 cc, 200 to 250 milligram Cypionate. So I mean, how much is that going to cost you? You could literally prepare for 5 years for $350.
Yeah, solid. All right. Well, we're coming up on the hour. That was an awesome talk, man. You covered some new stuff, which we haven't talked about before, rehash some of the older stuff. Let me just kind of scroll up real quick, see if there's any useful questions to take before we wrap up. Brand names. What were the brand names of the scrotal cream again?
There's not really a brand name. It's just the HRT base or the Versa base, and it's 200 milligram per gram compounded cream. Yeah. So any compounding pharmacy can make it. It's very simple.
I got a guy that asked, I use capsules, DHEA. Is that okay? No, it's fucking useless. It's not going to change anything. I mean, there's some places that sell it as like a fat metabolizer, or it's going to boost testosterone. Like my doctor, before he prescribed testosterone, gave me DHEA because you need a script for it here in Canada. In the States, you don't. You can just go to a Walmart and buy it. And we checked the blood labs before. It has no effect, whatsoever. Yeah, I mean it'll just boost your DHA levels in your blood, which is supposedly make you feel better, but I don't notice anything. So
no, and actually, to add to that, you're right. Actually, very few people know that. But if you have a deficiency, again, lab work will show it. But if you do have a deficiency in SDHA, this goes back to lack of sleep, because when you have high cortisol, your DHEA is in the tank. So don't ever touch SDHEA until you actually get your blood work done and you have a deficiency. And Richard's right. Most guys on testosterone are not going to have a deficiency of DHEA if you're doing everything else right.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap up the broadcast. Just real quick, shout out to some support links. Jay has a guaranteed shredded book and ultimate fat loss bundle. Both links are pinned in the top comment and the description of this broadcast. So if you've enjoyed the broadcast, you want to lose some belly fat, visceral fat, grab either one of those. They're very useful. I've used them myself personally, dude, for the last 3-4 weeks since I got my copy. And the results that I got was I went from about 210 pounds. I'm down to about 203.5 on the scale this morning, but I'm still holding on to the same amount of muscle. So intermittent fasting, the amount of cardio I was doing, fasted workout, and all the other tips you gave there, they work, guys. You just have to do the work. I mean, sitting around watching broadcasts like this and then, flipping over to Facebook, it's not going to answer questions. You actually have to go and do the damn work.
Yep. 100%, brother. Yeah, right. Epic time for sure. If you guys want to connect with me, the easiest way is through Twitter. Richard and I are pretty active there. I'm at TRT Expert. And then if you want to communicate to get something from me, just contact at trtrevolution.com.
Got one more question here I want to take because Joshua sent us a super chat. So I want to thank you. He says, I'm 37. I'm in a wheelchair, can't walk, arms weak too. I have muscular dystrophy. It's a muscle wasting disease. Will TRT help or hurt?
Absolutely. In fact, email me, bro, and I'll help you, man. I actually have guys like you that I have special protocols and special doctors that can help you. So just, do you have his email?
What is your email again, Jay? Just say it.
Well, I don't want to give it.
I can't DM. So find Jay on Twitter and send him a DM.
Yeah, bro, I'll help you. You can email me at contact@trtrevolution.com, but I want to work with you personally. So just send me a message on Twitter. And if you don't get a hold of me, just contact@trtrevolution.com.
There you go. All right. Thanks for the time, Jay. Immensely grateful. We'll do one again, the future, maybe in a month or two, catch up on some new shit. Thanks, man.
For sure, brother. Love you. Thank you so much for having me.